Hey everyone. In October, I'm going to be taking part in another Bookish Drummer Readathon. This one is the Dark Tower Readathon, and obviously all of the prompts are based on the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. You don't have to have read it, and you don't even, there's only one prompt that is a Stephen King book. And this one's a little bit different as opposed to like the Battle of the Bands, which is about, taking points from other teams and trying to finish all the prompts. This one's actually like you get points. Certain prompts are worth certain points, but you also get points for the number of pages. So some people may only read, a handful of books, but they're going to read really long ones. And then other people might read all the prompts, but they'll be, shorter books. So you have kind of whatever direction you want to go, which gives a little bit of flexibility. So I may start with a long book and, kind of see how I do, or, just kind of see what the mood brings. I decided to join Team Oi. It's different captains. Usually Nico and Nala are, but they're not participating in this one. So, or they decided they didn't want to be captains. So I have been on with the Bookish Drummer Battle of the Bands. I've now been on everyone's team except Ian's. So I joined Ian's team, which is Team Oi, and apparently that's some kind of like, well, it's a Billy Bumbler, which I haven't gotten to yet. I've only read The Gunslinger and a tiny bit of Drawing of the Three. So I don't know when he shows up, but I haven't met him yet. But he's some kind of like raccoon dog, and so that's probably what I would have picked anyway. The only character, I actually have just met Eddie, haven't met Susanna yet, and Jake I met in The Gunslinger. So, so again, this is really irrelevant because you don't have to have read the books. So the prompts are, and they obviously there's a wide range, and I'll go over what I'm planning to read. I can already tell you I'm probably going to change my TBR, partially because I made this plan based on what I thought I could get out of the library for certain ones that I don't own. And again, I'm trying not to spend money this year on books. So, there are a few that I can't get out of the library, and we might own like physical copies of, so I can see if I can find them. But if not, there are definitely books that if I have to return it to the library or I can't get in time, I just can't read. So I'll have to, figure that out. So luckily I have plenty of books that I can probably use. So the first one is All Things Serve the Beam. This is a 50-point prompt, and it's anything you want. So that one will be easy because, like anything I'm in the mood to read, I can just plug in there. 2 is The Wastelands, also 50 points, and this is a spooky book, which should be fairly easy because it's October, and naturally I like to read spooky things. The third one is Drawing of the Three, and that's also 50 points, and that's a book in a trilogy. This is going to be one of the hardest ones for me because I don't like series. So maybe I'll try to read. I think my plan is to try to finish Lord of the Rings for my swap with Sir Chong, but again, it's not like a fun read and it takes me forever. But the other nice thing about it is I can read like chunks of it in between different things, so I can always have it going. So I might try to do that. And then if that doesn't work, I'll have to try to figure out another trilogy. And then 4 is the first 100-point prompt, and this is Wizard and Glass in a book with a magic user. 5 is Oi, or the Billy Bumbler, which is another 100-point one, a book with an animal companion. 6 is There Are Other Worlds Than These, and that's also 100 points, a book not set on Earth. So I'm not 100% sure how to interpret this. Like, I don't know if that means it just has to be set in a different world, or if it means like in space, like literally not on the planet Earth. So that's what I'm kind of trying for right now. But I mean, if that works, I guess I could also read something set at sea because it's technically not on Earth. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I can be kind of flexible with how I interpret that. 7 is a 150-point book, and it's Jake, and because Jake is the Bookish Drummer, it's anything he's rated 4 or 5 stars. This is my other really hard one, because a lot of his books that he likes are either Stephen King books I haven't read that I just don't feel like reading too much Stephen King because he's not the fastest read, or they're books I've read, or they're books I have no interest in. So there's a handful on there, so I'm going to work with those, but I had a really hard time because I was like, okay, I don't want to read more Stephen King because I already have to read some Stephen King for this challenge. And like I said, he tends to be a slow, like, writer when I'm reading it. And then Jake likes a lot of fantasy. I do not, like sci-fi. So I was like, okay, so there are books that he's rated I don't like, and then there are books I have no interest in. But like I said, or I've read a lot, because he and I have similar taste in a lot of things. I guess worst case scenario, I think he gave Catcher in the Rye 5 stars, and that's like one of my favorite. It's my favorite book, basically, second favorite or whatever. So I can always reread. Catcher in the Rye. I'm never going to complain. So if I need to, I can just pop that one in. And then 8 is Catet, a Discord group or buddy read, and so there's a handful of those there's going to be happening this month. And so I already know which one I'm going to read for that. And then 9. You Have Forgotten the Face of Your Father. This is also 150 points, and it's a book with a dysfunctional family. 10, The World Has Moved On, 200 points. A dystopian, post-apocalyptic, or cataclysmic book. 11 is Eddie, a book with a bromance or a brotherhood. Again, 200. The Wind Through the Keyhole, also 200. A short story or novella collection. Starting at 250, we have Randall Flagg, a book part of a larger universe or a companion novel. But like not a series, like it has to be kind of like a standalone in a bigger universe, as far as I'm aware. And then 250 for 14, which is The Dark Tower, an author's magnum opus, their most famous or popular book. The last of the 250 is Roland or the Gunslinger, a book with a main character who is either an anti-hero or morally gray. And then for 300 points, we have Song of Susanna, a book somehow relating to music. Also 300, Crimson King, a book featuring corrupt royalty or leadership. The last of the 300 points is Wolves of the Calla, a book featuring a kidnapping. And then for 400 points is Long Days and Pleasant Nights, a long Stephen King book. And I think it was like 700 pages or more. So my plan, and again, we will see how I do. For my random anything I want, I'm hoping to read the Coup de Grace, because it's like kind of like a weird, it says it's sort of like Piranesi, and also it's got like almost like an escape room feel, sounds like, in the summary. So I have that galley, and I really want to read that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking I'm going to go for. But again, what's nice about that one is I can pop anything in because that's a mood read. For spooky, I'm thinking of The Silent Companions, because I had done a BuzzFeed quiz a while back, and it was like, hey, we'll recommend 10 books for you. And out of the ones they recommended, there were either books I'd already read, or that I was like, and the ones that I had already read I really liked, or they were books that I had on my list to read anyway, and this was one of them. So, and it was the one I hadn't heard of, and so it's kind of like a gothic ghost story, I guess. So I'm going to try that one. And then for the trilogy, I already said I'm going to try to do Return of the King. We'll see how I feel, because it's not the breeziest thing to read. For a magic user, I think I'm going to do Buy Forever, I guess, which is a middle grade book about someone who plays like D&D and RPGs. And so obviously there's magic users like in that. For the pet animal companion, I'm planning on doing the Traveling Cat Chronicles. For something not set on Earth, I was thinking of Ghost Station, because I think it's Dead Silence or whatever. I thought it was like one of the worst books I've ever read. But Ghost Station supposedly is a little bit better, so we shall see. But one of the things is, like, as bad as the book was, it took me all of like 2 hours to read it. So I'm kind of thinking this will be a breezy read, even if it's terrible. For the one that is one of the Jake, like 4 or 5 stars, I'm going to go with Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, because I'm pretty sure I have that one. If not, obviously I can change my mind. And then for the Discord read, I don't have a lot of options, because I think they're reading Under the Dome, and there's no way I'm going to try to read that, and try to read another long Stephen King book. And I forget what they're doing for like the sort of thrillers. It was either something that didn't interest me or I'd already read. So I think, so the only one would be the Bradbury Book Club, which is October Country, which I want to read anyway, and it makes sense to read in October. And then for a Dysfunctional Family, I have the arc for Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister, and it's about someone who's like finds out her husband's like a killer, so that's dysfunctional. An apocalyptic book, I have Last Murder at the End of the World. I really, really loved The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and this is also by Stuart Charton, and it's supposed to be sort of like post-apocalyptic murder sci-fi, so I'm excited to read that. For a Brotherhood, I'm hoping to do Cavalier and Clay because that's on my list of books I promised Sir Chunk I would read this year. For short story collection, I have Dark Tales by Shirley Jackson, which feels like a really good fit for October. For a standalone sort of companion, something set in a bigger series, I'm thinking of doing Return to Fear Street, or honestly any Fear Street book, because they're all standalone, but all within that like Fear Street universe. And so there's like a billion of those, and I can either read one of the newer ones I haven't read. And those are, I read those in like a couple hours. So that's going to be an easy one for me. And there's a ton for me to pick from. And then for the magnum opus, I'm thinking of doing The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. I was debating between that and The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. So if I end up like getting bored in The Big Sleep, I can switch over to that one maybe. And then I also thought about The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. But even though that won the Pulitzer, I still would say like Secret History is probably her magnum opus. For morally great characters, I have Brutes, which I've been dying to read. For music, I'm going to read Wilding Hall is what I'm thinking, because it's like a ghost story about this band that is in like this haunted house when they play, and so like they lose their minds and stuff, so it kind of deals with music. And then for corrupt leadership, I have the arc for We Came to Welcome You, which sounds like it's about this like neighborhood where like it's kind of corrupt, and like there's like a homeowners association, and they're like, it kind of has like, it sounds like it's gonna be like Get Out, or there's like racism, but it's like a horror novel. And then for a book with a kidnapping, I'm thinking of reading 6-4, which is supposed to be, has a kidnapping. It's a Japanese book, so it's long, but I've really enjoyed everything I've been reading lately from Japanese authors, and especially in like Japanese crime fiction. And what I have found, I mean, a lot of them are short, but I also find that like their writing style seems to be very sparse, and obviously some of that's the translation. But as a result, it doesn't, it reads kind of quickly for me. So I'm hoping, even though it's like 500 and something pages, it won't feel long. And then for the Stephen King long book, I'm thinking of doing The Talisman, because I was debating between that and Wizard and Glass, because those are Sir Chong's favorite too. And I haven't read either of those. But I have not finished the Drawing of the Three, and so in order to read Wizard and Glass, I would have to finish Drawing of the Three either before October 1st or in the middle of this, and then not even be late getting started. And then I'd also need to read The Wastelands, which I could, if I feel like really motivated to do that, I can then throw The Wastelands in for the one that Jake gave a 4 or 5 stars to. And then read Wizard and Glass, but I'm guessing realistically it makes the most sense for me to just start The Talisman at the beginning of the month and just plan on reading that one. So that's what I'm thinking. And I know one of the other options is 11/22/63, but I know Sir Chong hated that one, and to be honest, like, it doesn't sound very appealing to me. Just like the plot sounds kind of like a lot of nonsense and a lot of nothing happening, and I don't feel like dealing with that. He did say I'd probably love Under the Dome, so that's an option, because it's also a group read, but I would probably use it here. So that's an option too, but I think that's on like the middle for him, and I would probably rather read one of his favorites. But because he's more of a Stephen King person, and so when we were dating and everything, he would tell me, which books he had read that I hadn't, and he recommended Salem's Lot, he recommended Pet Sematary, and both of those are like amazing. So I think we have like similar-ish tastes, although not always. But I'm hoping I'll like The Talisman. Even though I know a lot of people don't like it because it's one of his favorites and also one of his favorite books of all time. I'm guessing I might like it. So that's my plan. And obviously then I'll figure out how many pages things are and so on. We don't have to read all 19 prompts. I like to try to like have everything as a checklist, and that's just how I think. Like I would much rather read 19, even if I have to throw some short ones in, and not get like a ton of extra points, than read a couple really long books, just because I will feel like it's incomplete. Like I should have finished. So that's my goal. I have been very slow since July in reading. I think I read 2 books in August, and I'm on and it's the end of September, and I think I read like 5. So I am way behind. And so reading 19 books, including a really long Stephen King book, in a month may end up being really hard. But I'm hoping that this, because I tend to be very competitive, so sometimes it motivates me. So we shall see. And like I said, I tried to get a good mix of like some longer books, some really easy books. I have a middle grade, I have a short story collection, because obviously we have 2 short story collections. And those are good because I can read a story and then go back to my novel and then go back to a story, So I'm hoping I will be able to do this. But that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. And at the end of the month, I will let you know how I did. And like I said, be very prepared for all of these picks to change, just because I do own, I think, either the arc or the book of almost all of these. I have a physical copy of October Country, and so I'm probably unlikely to not read that one. I don't own Ghost Station. I don't own Cavalier and Clay. I think that's it. I have The Talisman, but I don't think Sir Chunk will let me borrow his copy because he has like the first print or like an early print. So I'm trying to get that one out of the library. But I also have I think I have 2 copies already and several holds on Libby, so hopefully that one won't be an issue. My biggest concern is October Country, Cavalier and Clay, and Ghost Station, but I can definitely fill something else in for those. But I think I own the rest, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. And again, it'll just end up depending on if some of the things end up being harder to get through than I'm thinking. So anyway, that's my plan. I have no idea when I'll be back, probably at the end of the month. I may have some stuff in the meantime. I should probably do a September wrap-up at some point. Sir Chunk still needs to do the summer reading wrap-up. So hopefully we'll be back. Hopefully things are settling a little bit more. But yeah, so enjoy October. Hope you have a spooky month. And if I don't come back until the end of October, I will be back to tell you how the readathon went. All right. Bye.